Hi, I'm Kevin Kelly from the School of Engineering. Most of my teaching is in the area of engineering design, and group work is an extensive part of what I do and have done for quite a while.
So I'm Brendan Tangney from the School of Computer Science and Statistics. I'm interested in using technology to support collaboration, and I've been running the Bridge 21 project for about 10 years now, in which we make extensive use of group work.
My name is Martin Fellenz in Trinity Business School. I'm teaching organisational behaviour, so group work is part of what I teach. I've been using group work at undergraduate, postgraduate executive courses for the last 25 years.
So what are the benefits of group work?
Well, for me, the starting point often in what I do is it allows you to achieve scale in terms of the student activity. So if you're trying to have students working on a realistic activity, by which I mean one that they would encounter in their professional lives, then often the scale of that is beyond an individual assignment. So there's the scale of the task necessitates collaboration and division of the work into smaller packages, and then all the what might be called the transversal learning outcomes in terms of collaboration, cooperation, communication are an emergent part of that.
So I echo a lot of what Kevin says, but also if you look at what Vygotsky said about learning and this idea of the more able other as the person who assists us in the learning process and the learning journey. In a traditional classroom, the instructor takes on that role, but if you engage in collaboration and group work, you have peer learning and you're effectively multiplying the number of more able others in the room. So it's a very powerful technique, very powerful pedagogical technique.
Yeah, there's two headings for the reasons why I use group work. One is efficiency, the other one is effectiveness. Effectiveness is what Kevin and Brendan were talking about, that you can teach things and students can learn things from group work that they could not learn necessarily or as well from other ways of getting them engaged in the material. But there's also an efficiency argument. With large groups or with large groups of students, with large courses, group work cuts down on the number of different assessed pieces of work. So there's a whole range of reasons why groups might be a very effective and efficient vehicle for teaching.
And if you look at the goals of the Trinity Education Project and developing graduate attributes, so you know, the transversal skills, communication, collaboration, presentation and stuff, group methodologies and project work really lend themselves to developing those skills.
I think in terms of student employability in most areas, students don't come out to become only individual contributors. They will inevitably work in groups and teams, and coming out of university with the knowledge that they hopefully have acquired, but without the skills to deploy them effectively, is not is not a fully rounded graduate. So part of what Brendan was talking about with the graduate attributes, but certainly something we hear from virtually all employers we interact with, is that they want people that can hit the ground running, and that includes being immediately effective in group and team environments.
Yeah, I'd completely agree with what Martin has said. This is consistent feedback we get from employers, and it's not just a Trinity thing or an Irish thing. We know this internationally from both from the educational literature, but also the professional bodies in various different areas. And it's very hard to replicate the work environment in the university, and it's not that we necessarily should be replicating the work environment in the university, but that can be a component of what we do, and the transmission of core knowledge is one aspect of what we do, but also the means by which to apply it and the context in which it will be applied is important to give that to the students, so they have a more rounded learning and also a better appreciation for why they're learning what they're learning and how it's actually going to be useful to them. So in addition to developing the transversal competencies, it actually gives them a context to apply, and in a sense we're also responding to what, and I wouldn't limit it just to what companies are saying. I mean, it's what society actually needs. So whether you're working in the voluntary sector, whether you're working in the for-profit sector, these are skills that you're going to need. And the assumption that we can just develop those or assume that our students will develop those through extracurricular activity or elsewhere is maybe a little naive, I think, for institutions like universities. And it's not always an either or. In fact, you can often develop deeper learning of the domain knowledge through application and development in a team context or in a group context. So I think there's many benefits to it.
I mean, it's not that group work is the only pedagogy we should be using. No one pedagogical approach is appropriate. But if we're looking at developing content, knowledge and other skills, you need a mix of pedagogical approaches that are aligned to the skills and the learning objectives that you have, and you need a list of variety of assessment techniques. To go back to Martin's point about effectiveness, they did a large longitudinal study in Cambridge and a couple of other universities a good number of years ago looking at the effectiveness of group work for teaching content in secondary schools. And they found that when you train the teachers and the students up in group work methodologies beforehand, they benefit significantly in traditional assessment.
So using group work, and that includes both group work in classrooms and lecture halls where you create ad hoc groups, but also big, chunky, large-scale assessed pieces of group work provide another learning community for students. In large classes, students with 200, 300, 400 other students feel very much individual as a learner. In groups, they can share their learning with others. So not only does it aid in skills that are relevant for their actual group work, but it also provides them with another experience as a learner, a collaborative experience that will enhance the overall inputs that they're getting, that they can transform to transform themselves into a more able, more rounded individual.
I think I'd just build on that point actually as well, because as well as the competencies we're trying to develop from a professional perspective or from a knowledge perspective, we have to remember that we're a community as well. And an increasing trend I think we see in maybe our population in general, but certainly from our perspective probably as academics we see in our students, is more presentation of anxiety, of mental health issues. And we know that integration in the college community is a big challenge for a lot of students. It's actually quite a disturbing experience, or quite a traumatic experience in some ways for many students, that transition from school to college. And actually working in groups is a way of integrating students within their own peer groups, particularly for those who are maybe more shy or reticent. It's in a form of induction, I guess, that gets introduced to their peers and allows them to form their own social networks that help to embed them in the community. One thing I would say about group work is if I talk to graduates and you ask them to reflect back on their experience as students, inevitably they will talk about particular examples of group projects that they have done as being the most rewarding or most enjoyable or most formative experience that they had during their time in university.